I want to draw your attention this morning, for the time we have, to three verses that were read to us. They are found in Hebrews chapter 4, and it's verse 14, 15, and 16. So Hebrews chapter 4, I'll read them again, verses 14, 15, and 16. I would say they're three of the most encouraging, remarkable verses in the whole of the Bible. So Hebrews chapter 4, verse 14, it says this: "Since then, we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God. Let us hold fast our confession. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who in every respect has been tempted as we are, yet without sin. Let us therefore with confidence draw near to the throne of grace, that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need." Now, I want to say to you three things about these verses this morning. 3 points. And each point is 2 words. And the first point, the first 2 words are this: hold fast. Hold fast. You can see that in verse 14. The writer, we don't know who the writer of the Hebrews is, but it says this: "Since then we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens. Let us hold fast." Hold fast. Now, the letter was written to Hebrews. And these people, they were written in danger of something. And the letter to the Hebrews is written to people, and their danger was this: they were about to abandon the faith. They were about to walk away. Now, maybe you take notes, I don't know, but you can look at these later. In verse 2, verse 1, chapter 2, sorry, verse 1, it tells that some of them, they'd stopped paying attention. So they were meeting, but they stopped paying attention. They weren't listening anymore. In chapter 5, verse 11, there were those who they came, imagine how they came to church on a Sunday, but they were dull of hearing. They were bored out of their brains. So some, they'd stopped paying attention. Others, they were just bored. They were dull. They'd heard it all before. They were dull of hearing. Chapter 2, verse 1 says, some were just drifting, aimlessly drifting. Chapter 3, verse 12, it says, some were in danger of turning away. They come, but they were thinking, I'm about to give up. I'm about to walk away. And then, chapter 3, verse 13, there were some who had been hardened by the deceitfulness of sin. They were dazzled by the bright lights. There were sins that they just couldn't resist. They were things that seemed more enjoyable, more pleasurable than come to church on a Sunday. Some, chapter 10, verse 25, some, they'd actually stopped. They'd started not to come to church. They'd neglected meeting together. They might be here once, but then you see them in 4 weeks' time, or they just stopped coming. And then in chapter 10, verse 38, there was lots of them who were shrinking back. They were scared. Why were they scared? Well, these were Hebrews. They were Jews. And they were second generation Christians. Most of them had never heard the Lord Jesus Christ preach. They'd heard the apostles and other people, and they'd become Christians, but they were Jews. But they still had maybe a wife who was a Jew, or a husband who was a Jew, or children or parents who were Jews. They worked with Jews. They were neighbors with Jews. And what was the problem? Well, at this point in the first century, Judaism was quite a nice religion to be part of. It was recognized by the Roman Empire. If you were a Jew, you were okay at this point. And so you could go about your business, you could have a business, you could have quite a nice life. If you were a Christian, boys back. Nero. Now, let me just say this. Why did anyone name a coffee shop Nero? I don't get that. All right, there we are. I don't know. Anyway, you got Nero. I mean, he hated Christians. You know the story. Apparently he fiddled as Rome burned and blamed it on the Christians. If you were a Christian, it wasn't a recognized religion. It was some bad little sect. And so you can imagine these Jews. And at this point, I think this letter was written before the temple was destroyed in AD 70. The temple stood. It was an amazing building. They had all the priesthood with all their kind of clothes and their bells and their smells. Oh, it was amazing. And these Jewish family were saying, why are you hanging out with these Christians? Why are you making life hard for yourself? Some of us have been burnt at the stake. You've resisted blood up until now. Oh, come back. Make your life easy. Why are you going against the cultural flow? Why are you making yourself difficult? Come on. And look where you're meeting. You're meeting in little houses. We've got a temple. And these ordinary fishermen from Galilee, we've got the priesthood. Come back. Now, that's the context. And you can see at the end of verse 16, for these people, it was a genuine time of need. Let me ask you this question this morning. Is anything I just said, does it resonate with you? Are there people here this morning, and if you're honest, you're just a bit bored? There was a time when you heard about Jesus Christ coming into the world to save sinners. Oh, it warmed you. You read your Bible, you couldn't put it down. Now, it's boring. You're probably thinking, he arrived late, I hope he goes early. Now you might be thinking that. You're bored. You've heard it all before, you daydream. Maybe you're drifting. You're just drifting. You come here on a Sunday, you might come here midweek, but you're just drifting. Maybe some of you this morning, you're about to turn away. You're about to jack it in. I preached this sermon. This is one I did before, one I did prepared earlier, all right? I preached in Merthyr 2 weeks ago. There's a man in the church. His wife came up to me at the end. She said, Alun, my husband said to me tonight, this was going to be his last Sunday he came to church. I'm about to walk away. Maybe you're hardened or you've been sort of sidetracked or tempted by the deceitfulness of sin. Anyone who tells me that sin isn't attractive, I don't believe them. Sin's attractive. Pubs and clubs, things on the internet, relationships, having a laugh, doing what you want, pleasing yourself. Oh, it's attractive. If you don't believe me, read 2 Samuel 11 and 12, King David. He was completely he was intoxicated by sin. Maybe that's you. And the power of it. Just one more look. Oh, the laugh. Oh, I just got to have it. Maybe that's you this morning. Maybe for your young person this morning. I can't see many young people, but maybe you are, I don't know, all right? Young people, and you're thinking, oh, the dazzling lights of the city. We got people in our church now, have just come back from university. Those first few months in university, no one's watching. All you can do, sin. Maybe you know people here, there's some empty seats in there. Maybe there's people who were here last Sunday, they're not here this week. Why? They don't come anymore. You've got friends. I was in Zion yesterday. We had a really nice day yesterday. We had loads of people there. It was great. But I can tell you people who used to be there who are not there anymore. And maybe you're about to shrink back. Don't you find it hard to be a Christian in 21st century Abergavenny? We're going against the culture. What we believe is old-fashioned, is offensive. It's hard to be a Christian. Do you know the easiest thing I could do this morning? Just give it up. Just give it up. But the writer here to these people, he says this. Hold fast. Keep going. Don't give in. Hold fast. Now, why is he saying that? Well, I used to teach in Westmont in Pontypool. When I was young and cool and trendy, I was 6 foot, I was athletic, it was incredible times, all right? And I used to run the football teams and the rugby teams, and I ran a football team, and we did quite well one year. We got the final of the Welsh Cup. The second year, we were in the quarterfinals of the Welsh Cup. And we had to play a team in Trefethin, which was it was hailstones, wind, thunder. I think it was sort of June, all right? And anyway, we played this football match, quarter-final. And at half-time, we were 4-0 down. 4-0 down. I got the boys in the changing room. I said, come on, boys. You can do this. Play for the badge. Play for your families. Play for the school. We went out. We lost 8-0. All right? Why? Why? Because my Braveheart speech, that's all it was. It was just, come on. Psychological, come on. Is that what the apostle's doing here? Is he saying to these people, now come on. I know it's hard. I know sin is tempting. I know sometimes it can be boring. I know you're drifting. I know the persecution, but come on. Is that what he's doing? No. He says, hold fast. Why? Point number 2, verse 14. We have. We have. Don't give up because you've got something. We have. Now, let me be clear now. Before I say what we do have, I want to say that this is in the present tense. And throughout this letter, the apostle uses the present tense. You can look at this again. Chapter 3, verse 6. Chapter 3, verse 14. Chapter 6, verse 19. Chapter 8, verse 1. Chapter 10, verse 19. Chapter 12, verse 28. Always in the present tense. You've got something. Don't give up. You've got something. We have. So no, he's not saying, listen now, you became a Christian. You became a Christian. And that was an amazing day. And you're going to go to heaven one day. In the meantime, hold on. And you're Welsh, so pray for revival. So that might be fine for a bit. But keep going. He's not saying that. He's not saying, now look back at your conversion. He's not saying, look ahead to glory. All those things are important. He's not saying, you've got to wait for revival to come. We all want revival to come. But he's saying, listen, all that is true, but you have something right now. At 25 past 11 in Abergavenny, you've got something right now, which is the reason you shouldn't give up. We have. Now, what do we have? We have a great high priest. Now, if I went to Abergavenny this morning and said to them, great news, you've got a great high priest, lots of them wouldn't understand what a great high priest was. These people reading this letter for the first time, they knew all about the high priest. And so let me explain to you what a high priest did. Who he was, what he did. The first thing to say about the high priest is this. He was appointed by God. Chapter 5, verse 1 says, for every high priest chosen from among men is appointed to act on behalf of God, a man in relation to God. He's appointed. You couldn't be a little Jewish boy and grow up one day and think, do you know what? One day I want to be a high priest. You were chosen by God. God had to approve that you were a high priest. Because why? Well, because you were gonna plead for the people to God. I had to have God's approval. You also had to be a man. You can see that in verse 1. Every high priest chosen from among men. He had to be a man, had to be a human being. Why? Because he was advocating to God on behalf of men. He had to be a man. Now, we lived in London for 10 years. We lived literally a stone's throw from Twickenham Stadium, which is every Welsh boy's dream, isn't it? To be able to throw a stone at Twickenham. Anyway, there we are. I lived by Twickenham Stadium. You could walk to there in about 3 minutes to Twickenham Stadium. And my governors at the time in London, they were very rich and wealthy, and they had hospitality. And I used to go to Twickenham Stadium quite a lot to watch the rugby. And my favourite moment in all my life was when Wales, I was there, sat in the stadium, when I watched Wales beat England in their own Rugby World Cup. What a moment to be alive. All right? Now, I went home, walked home, I said to my wife, we won. We won. We beat the English. Now, all I'd done is have a hot dog and a cup of tea and watched in the stands. I hadn't done anything. But those 15 men were Welsh men representing all Welsh people. The high priest, he had to be one of us because he was representing us. So he had to be a man appointed by God. And he offered sacrifices. You can see in verse 3, because of this, he is obligated to offer sacrifices for his own sins, just as he does for those of other people. His job was, I'm representing men to God, and I'm going to offer a sacrifice. And so what do? He'd offer a sacrifice. What was the sacrifice? Well, I don't upset people this morning, but this is what I can't mess around. You read Leviticus. What would they do? They take an animal. So every Jewish worshipper would take an animal, maybe a bull, and they'd take it to the temple. They'd slit his throat. They'd cut it. They'd wash it. And then they'd put it, and they'd burn it. Why? Well, because sin is serious. You know that, don't you? Sin is serious. Sin means death. And so here's this high priest, and he's representing men before God, and he takes a sacrifice, and it's bloody, and it's drippy, and it's smelly, and it's grotesque, and it's awful, and it's violent. But every Hebrew worshipper knew, when they looked at that bull burning, that should be me. That sacrifice is taking my place. That's the high priest. That's what he was. But the question is this, who is our high? You have a high priest. Who is our high priest? Well, all through the Old Testament, right? The sacrifices, the priesthood, the temple, they were all pointing towards somebody who would come. We have a great high priest. Who is he? He's the Lord Jesus Christ. And he's God. And if you look at verse 5 of Hebrews chapter 5, it says, so also Christ did not exalt himself to be made a high priest, but was appointed by him who said to him, you are my son. Today I have begotten you. The Lord Jesus Christ isn't some amazing person from history who God appointed to be our great high priest. Jesus Christ is God himself. You are great high priest. He's God. This morning, you haven't come to worship a dead Galilean carpenter. He's God. I don't know if you watch the news. Perhaps you watch the news. And you see all that's going on in the world. And you might see Mr. Trump. And what's Mr. Trump going to do next? Mr. Putin. You look at China. You look at North Korea. You look at India. Is Mr. Burnham going to be our next Prime Minister? I don't know. All these world events. Technology. AI. The iPhone 74 you've got in your pocket. Driverless cars. It's incredible. Please don't think that God is in some remote Middle Eastern hut, scratching his head trying to work all this out. Do you know what the psalmist says? Our great high priest, he sits in heaven. He looks at it all. And do you know what he does? He laughs. He laughs. Trump's next breath, he gives it to him. Well, we just had, didn't we? Men going to the moon and a woman going to the moon. Brilliant. And I love a bit of space. It's great. But it makes you think, doesn't it? I don't know if I told you this last time, but I'm not a scientist. I'm not a scientist. But I know this, right? We live on a planet called the Earth. Do we know that, don't you? Please tell me you know that. Yes. All right? And it's 93 million miles away from the sun. Okay? And imagine now we decided now we're going to have a cup of tea and then we're all going to go to the moon. We're all going to go to the sun. And then we've got a bus outside, 2 buses, and we're all going to get on these buses. They're fast buses, all right? And they can go at 150 miles an hour. So we're going to have to navigate the 20-mile-an-hour limit. We'll sort that out, okay? But we're going to go in this bus now, all of us, and we're going to go 150 miles an hour. And we're not going to stop. And we're going to keep going for 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And if we did that, 70 years later, we get to the sun. 70 years later. And then we're on the sun, and it's a bit hot now. Oh, it's hot. So our galaxy is one of loads of other stars in the galaxy. And so we decided we'd go to the next nearest sun in our galaxy. The galaxy is called Milky Way, you know that? Go to the next nearest sun. It's called the Alpha Centauri. So we get on the same bus, go the same speed, 150 miles an hour. We never, ever stop for fuel. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days of the year, and 15 million years later, we approach the outskirts of Alpha Centauri. And our great high priest made it all. He just spoke. Let there be light. Light. He put the sun, the moon, stars in the place. And do you know what? The Bible says he made the sun, the moon, and he also made the stars. It's almost like, oh, by the way, he made the stars. By the way. And there's millions and billions and trillions of galaxies. He made them all. And you know, this is incredible, right? As a school teacher, I used to really struggle. When I became a head teacher, I used to really struggle to remember the children's names. Now, I can't remember the staff's names. There's 200 of them. I can't remember them all. And yet this person who, by the way, made the stars, he knows them all by name. Our great high priest, he's God. But he's also a man. If my great high priest was this person who could speak a whole universe into being, and he was holy and pure and majestic, I would think, but I can't get to him. He's a man. This morning, there's a man in the glory. Not a superman. A real man. And the Bible says he is our sympathetic high priest. He's sympathetic. Look at chapter 5, verse 8. It says, although he was a son, he learned obedience through what he suffered. Is that me? Is that better? Again, not a word of this to school about technology, all right? It's all right. No, it's my fault. Okay. There we are. Okay. He's a man. He learned to be. What does it mean that he learned obedience? It means this. For 33 years, he learnt what it was to be a human being. He came down, imagine this now, in about AD 405, the person who I've just said spoke a universe into being, came down the birth canal of a teenage Hebrew girl. And he was born in very humble surroundings. And he grew up in a really rough place. It wasn't like Abergavenny, it was called Nazareth. It was rough. People said nothing good comes from Nazareth. They had a reputation for being wild and reckless. And this little boy grew up in a house with at least 7 or 8 brothers and sisters. And it had been just 2 rooms. It wasn't a 4-bed semi in Krakow, it was 2 rooms. And they'd sleep all in a row. Every morning they'd get their mattress out and they'd shake it in the sun. This little boy, he'd go to the well for his mother, or he'd go and buy some fish for supper. His father would take him out into the mountains and tell him stories about Israel's past. He grew up, he worked in a carpenter shop. He wasn't a doctor, he wasn't a lawyer, he wasn't a head teacher, he was a carpenter. He just worked hard. He went around, he played with the kids on the hills in Judea. He learned to walk and talk and read and write. His mother would have clutched him when he fell over. He was just a boy. And then he becomes a man and he goes around and he starts preaching. And what do the people say? Oh, the children loved him. They came to him. In a time where it said, better to burn the law than teach to a woman, this man, he welcomes women into his fellowship. No one has done more for the dignity of women than this great man. He was kind, but he was stern when he saw things wrong. People listened to him. They said, no one has ever spoken like this man. He was a man. He sweated, he bled, he got hungry, he got thirsty, he got tired. When his friend died, he cried. He went to a wedding and he laughed. He was a man. He looked like a Jewish man. He looked a bit old for his age. If he walked in here this morning, 2,000 years ago, he'd just be like the rest of us. He was a man. He knows what it's like to be me and you. He knows the pressures of work. I'm preaching in Zion tonight. And about when he's preached all day, it's still in the storm, he preached all day. What does he do in the boat? He falls asleep straight away. Why? He was shattered. He was shattered. Why did he sit at a well when that woman met him? Because he was thirsty. He's a man. And he has to be a man because he's representing human beings. And he wants to know what it feels like. Yet, without sin. And you might say to me, that's a problem, see, Al. He doesn't know what it's like to fall into sin. He doesn't really know what it's like to be me. The Bible says he was tempted in all points as we are, yet without sin. Now, I've been when I was in London, I was really fit. I used to cycle back and forth to work. Since I've been doing this job for the last 2 years, you can see I'm not fit, all right? But I'm trying to get fit again. And I've been on a no-carbs diet for 2 weeks. On Friday night, we go out for someone's birthday in an Italian restaurant in Bramall. We do have Italian restaurants in Bramall, okay? And I went to this Italian restaurant, and I looked at the menu, and I thought, I'd love a pizza. I'd love a pizza. And I thought, no. And then my wife said, go and have a pizza. And then about 30 seconds later, I was eating the pizza, all right? I give in. I knew the power of temptation for 30 seconds. It was hard. Temptation gets harder, doesn't it? The longer you resist it. The longer you resist it. Jesus Christ knows the power of temptation in a way that none of us here do. He never gave in to it. He knows. He knows. So we have a high priest this morning. Hold fast. Don't give in. Why? We have a high priest. And he's God. And he's man. And he's sympathetic. He gets you. He gets you. Maybe you come here this morning and think, no one really understands me. No one gets me. No one gets the pressure I'm under. No one gets my family circumstance. No one understands my mental health. No one knows the pressures and the powers and the addictions I struggle with. No one knows about my bank balance. No one knows about that lump I found. No one knows. And I come to church and everyone's nice and they say, I'm sorry about that, I'll pray for you. And we all do, don't we, for about a day and then we forget. No one knows. No one knows me. I taught again in Westmont. I've taught over 12,000 students now. And I think one of the saddest little girls I ever met was a little girl called Sophie in Westmont School. Saddest case I think I've ever come across. And she would come to school and she would get picked up at lunchtimes by men and they'd take her off in their car and do all sorts of things to her. Sometimes they paid her, sometimes they didn't. She'd come to school drunk. She'd come to school on drugs. She was in a terrible state. She was in my office one day. Her mother was sat with her. She said, things, Mr. Ebenezer, I just don't love her. I don't love her. And then one day, about a week later, Sophie went off, did something else. She came to my office. I've calmed down a lot now. I went for her. Come on, I said, give it a row. I remember now this little girl, big tears in her eyes. She said, Mr. Ebenezer, you've got no idea what it's like to be me. Do you feel like that this morning? You've got no idea. Can I tell you this morning, there's a man in heaven who knows you better than you know yourself. Because there's a little line in the AV, it says this, chapter 4, verse 15, it says, we do not have one who cannot. Sounds like a riddle, doesn't it? We do not have one who cannot. Now, tomorrow I'll go back to school. And I have no doubt that by about 11 o'clock tomorrow morning, there'll be naughty boys in my office. And I will say to them, tell me about it. And this is what they'll say. Mr. Ebenezer, we don't know nothing. And they're absolutely right. Because they know something. Because in English, isn't it? Double negative, it cancels it out. We don't know. If you don't know nothing, it means you know something. But in the Greek, in the Hebrew, it strengthens it. So what's the writer saying? He's saying, listen, you haven't got a great high priest who can sympathize with you. You've got a great high priest, and is it impossible for him not to be able to sympathize with you? He gets you. Now, what did he do? I don't know what your problems this morning. You might have lots of problems. Financial, addictions, mental health. You might have loads of problems. But what's your fundamental problem? If you're not a Christian, listen to this. Do you know your fundamental problem? You're a sinner. You're a sinner. You're a sinner. But this great high priest, what did he do? He offered a sacrifice for your sin. That's what he did. At 33 years of age, they arrested him in a garden called Gethsemane. 300 men came with torches and lanterns, and they marched him through the streets of Jerusalem. They took him to the high priest, then they took him to Pilate, who palmed off to Herod, then put him back to Pilate, and they tried him, and Pilate said, I can't find anything wrong with him. And yet they do some jumped up charges, and he's arrested, and he's put into the kind of jurisdiction of 600 Roman soldiers, and he's seen as a terrorist. And they take out all the sadistic urges on him. They strip him, how humiliating. They spit at him. They punch him. They tie him behind his back. They whip him 39 times. You can see his inner organs. Then 4 men would have taken his cross and they would have marched through the streets of Jerusalem. And he walks. And he gets to the city gates and he's so tired he collapses. And these irritable, impatient Roman soldiers say, come on. They grab a man called Simon of Cyrene and said, carry his cross. We haven't got time for this. And Mark's gospel said it wasn't just that Simon of Cyrene carried his cross. He had to actually uphold Jesus Christ. He had to support Jesus Christ. He who made the starry skies couldn't put one foot in front of the other. And yet at the same time upholds the universe. Then they get to a place called Golgotha. And they put a cross on the floor and they nail him to a cross. And he hangs there. And he cries out. In the midday sun, he goes pitch black. He cries out, my God, why have you forsaken me? Why have you turned your back on me? Why do I already see the anger of God? You know the answer? Because in 2026, in a school hall in Abergavenny, there are people who need their sins forgiven. And on that cross, he cries out with a loud voice, it is finished. Everything that you have done wrong can be put right. And everything that you need to be in a right relationship with God has been accomplished. It's done. You see, Hebrews chapter 10, verse 11 and 12 describes the priests in the Old Testament. They were no seats. Because they never sat down. Why do you know my favourite moment of the day is when I get home and sit down. I love it. My job's done. These priests, they never sat down. They'd make a sacrifice today. They'd have to make more tomorrow. And the day after, they just kept making sacrifices. Do you know what Hebrews chapter 1 verse 3 says? It says this. After making purifications for sin, he sat down. What is the great difference between Christianity and any other religion? Every other religion says you've got to do something. You've got to go to Mecca. You've got to not eat food for a month. You've got to wear certain clothes. You've got to eat certain food. You've got to bathe in certain rivers. Do. Christianity says done. Trust in a finished work. Do you know, I don't know all of you, I don't know many of you at all, but let me tell you this. I think some of your problem is this. You want to be right with God, you think you're too bad, and you think you've got to contribute. And somehow you tell yourself, that's quite noble of you. Oh, I'm too bad. I'm too bad. I've done things. They can't be forgiven. Can you honestly look at the cross of Jesus Christ and say, that's not enough? I don't know if it was, my son was a best man in a wedding about a year or so ago, his best mate. And it was a very nice wedding. Can you imagine we go to the wedding, and me and my wife are on the way, and we stop off, and I said to my wife, stop there, there's Tesco Extra there. And I go in there, and I buy chicken and chicken sandwiches, cheese sandwiches, Monster Munch, a bottle of Fanta, and a pack of Kit Kats. And I go to the wedding host, and I say, listen, I didn't think you'd have enough food. So I thought I'd help you out, and here's my contribution. How rude. How rude. And yet, some of you this morning look at the cross of Jesus Christ and say, that's not enough. It's not enough. It is finished. No more sacrifices. No more bulls or lambs or goats to be slain. He did it all. So the last point is this. Come boldly. Hold fast, because we have. So therefore, the AV says this, therefore, come boldly. Verse 16. Come boldly. And where are you coming boldly to? Coming boldly to a throne. Not an office. Not a doctor's surgery. Not a psychologist's couch. Not to a social services. Not to marriage guidance. Not to the bank manager. You're coming to a throne. A throne. Do you know, because this high priest, he's by the throne. Maybe you think this morning, do you know, if only Jesus Christ could come through that door, I'd believe. If only I could take Jesus Christ to work tomorrow morning. If only. If I could see him. When I was in London, there was a man called Greg Hands. He was the chairman of he was chairman of the Conservative Party. Right? And this is not a political point, so don't worry. But he was chairman of the Conservative Party, and he was one of our patrons. And he texted me one day and said, "Alun, I'm going into the House of Commons tomorrow. Is there any question you want me to ask the Prime Minister?" Bach. I quite a few. I won't tell you what they were. He said, "But I can ask you a question on your behalf and Fulham Boys School's behalf." Greg Hands, chairman of the Conservative Party, talking to the Prime Minister in Westminster for me. Now, the staff would have said, Greg Hands is an important man. Why can't he come to school? Why can't he come sit in the staff room? Why can't he come to my classroom and help out? He was much more valuable to me in the seat of power. Jesus Christ, he's at the very epicenter of the universe. And he's God. And he remembers what it's like to be me. I need him there. You might be, this is a nice hall, isn't it? It's fine there, but it's not St. Paul's Cathedral. It's not Westminster Abbey. You might see buildings, you might see nightclubs in Cardiff, you might see university buildings, you might see Buckingham Palace, you might, in the next 4 or 5 weeks, see all these stadiums around the world, football stadiums. You think, wow, that's impressive. This hall is fine. But we're not about this hall, are we? We are about the unseen, and yet the real. He's passed through the heavens. Maybe you are about to give up. Maybe sin is also powerful. Maybe persecution is tough. Maybe you've got real, genuine problems. Come boldly to the throne of grace. And you'll receive 2 things. You'll have mercy. You need mercy, don't you? You've done things. You need mercy. And his mercies are tender. When I was deputy head in Cardiff, my parents, they broke down in Cardiff and they phoned me. I was doing the timetable. It still goes down as the worst timetable. It was terrible. I couldn't do it. It was terrible. I'd get stressed and I'd be working. And my father phones me and says, "Alun, sorry to bother you. We broke down in Cardiff. Can you come and get us?" I went to get him. He's my dad, isn't he? But boys back did I huff and puff. And boys back did I let him know what a massive inconvenience it was. When I go to the throne tonight and tell him I've done it again, that sin I promised I wouldn't commit, I've fallen into it again. I feel so dirty. I feel so rubbish. He's never huffed and puffed at me once. His mercies are tender, and they are new every day. And you don't just get mercy, you get grace. Grace to help you. I can see people, I can see Frank and Nancy, Miss Dave, I can see Paul, I can see people I've known all my life and I've looked up to, and they're still standing. Why are they still standing? I can tell you other people I used to see, they're no longer here. Why are they still standing? Because every day they've asked for grace. If you are going to stand, if you are going to make it, you need grace. You're not going to do it on your own. I was in Zion yesterday. It was a really good day. We had all these teenagers up there in the balcony, right? And I looked at them, I knew I was going to do this, and I thought, you know what? There's no chance you'll stand in this day and age unless you go to the throne for grace. You need grace. All the cultural winds, all the temptation, you're never going to do it. But you will if you go to that throne. And come boldly. What does that mean? Oh, he's your mate. Come as you are. I said to God, God said to me, he's my buddy, he's not your pal or your buddy, he's the maker of heaven and earth. Come boldly means you can come with confidence and you can keep coming. Every day you can keep coming. And he's got a smiling face and open arms. Draw near. Let me finish with this. Who knows a man called, I've just forgotten his name. Who knows a man called Michael Fagan? Anyone know a man called Michael? Anyone know who Michael Fagan is? Go on. He broke into Buckingham Palace. In the 1980s, Michael Fagan, he didn't just break in once, he broke in twice. He broke in twice. Michael Fagan, he's still alive, he lives in London. He certainly was a few years ago. He lived in London, he broke into Buckingham Palace twice. The second time, he actually got into the Queen's bedroom. And he was sat at the foot of the Queen's bed. Imagine waking up and it's Michael Fagan. Michael Fagan. Now, political commentators and royal correspondents, they couldn't get their head around this. And they had two questions. How did he get in? And what did they talk about? I cannot get you into King Charles's bedroom today. But I can get you into the throne room of heaven. And you can talk to God. How do you get in? Through Jesus Christ. What are you going to talk about? This is the best bit. You can tell him everything. The things you're angry about. The things you're frustrated about. The things you're ashamed of. You can just tell him everything. Mr. Hyde used to say to us in the Heath, Alan, you can always be honest with God. Things you don't tell your partner, things you don't tell your mother and father, things you won't tell anyone else, you can tell God. Just tell him. And you'll find grace and mercy. Hold fast, because we have, so come boldly.